I was first diagnosed with stomach cancer 7.5 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago. And I was in Singapore, just having a normal business meeting. And after dinner one night, I was just feeling very bloated. And the bloating did not stop until, even around 10:30 at night. So that's when the pain was getting quite intense. So my husband happened to be around, so he rushed me to the A&E in Parkway Hospital in Singapore. And I was obviously in a lot of pain. The pain started building up until around midnight or so. And I had quite gory. My stomach actually exploded. And I went into immediate surgery. Then around the next morning, they basically sedated me, and I went into about 5 hours of surgery, where they cut me open, and they did a surgical biopsy as well, which which then concluded that I actually had gastric cancer, and the cancer had actually grown and punched through my stomach walls. So that was what was causing that caused the explosion, the eruption of my stomach walls the night before. I was in ICU for a few days after that to recover from the gastrectomy surgery, followed by about 5-6 weeks in the hospital to recover from the surgery. Thereafter, I met my oncologist in Singapore, Mount Elizabeth Hospital, Dr. H.L. Kong Wai Lun. He was basically one of the top oncologists in Singapore, an ASEAN Scholar, President Award for a lot of research work he has done, and happened to be also a close friend of the family. So I met him 1 week after I was discharged, which is about, I recovered from the surgery, which is about 5-6 weeks later. I sat down with him, and with all the prognosis before me, he basically told me one thing. He said, you have the most aggressive strain of stomach cancer, and if you do not start chemo, you only have a less than 40% chance of living beyond 1 year. So that was that was the beginning of my fight against cancer. So after going through intense chemo for about 5 months plus radiotherapy, well, I was obviously in a very state of shock for quite a long time, and it really didn't sink in that I was actually at the brink of death until about 1-2 years ago. Throughout the chemo, you just go through the motions. The treatment. You really have no time to really think about it. And I was very fortunate that I had a lot of family support. So the chemo itself was very traumatic because it caused a lot of depression. So I had a lot of a lot of depressive moments. More as the side effects of the drugs. And there was a lot of crying. There was a lot of it wasn't acceptance. It was more like just trying to cope with the side effects of the chemo. But it was really, like I was mentioning, it was really about 2 years into the whole experience that I fully realized that I have to change a lot of things in my life, in my outlook, in my lifestyle, and also accepting that this is actually something I have to live with, and my life is is very short, so I have to fight for every day or every year to live. Yeah. About 3 years ago, my cancer had a relapse, and I couldn't. And that time, the relapse news actually came when I was doing one of my follow-up meeting with my Singapore oncologist, and at that time, after the second prognosis, he mentioned that the treatment will be easier for me from a logistics standpoint to be done out of KL. because I've already moved to KL, settled in KL, and it was not easy for me to travel back to Singapore every 2 to 3 weeks just to do the treatment. So he recommended Dr. Christina at the time she was working at Pantai. So I went to see her, consultation, and after that I was very comfortable, and we started a new round of chemo regime about 3 years ago. So it was very interesting. Dr. Christina is a bit of a opposite personality compared to my initial Singapore oncologist, in the sense that being female, she's a lot more empathetic and sympathetic in the listening. She also endorsed a holistic healing, holistic treatment, which involves the family, also which involves the psychological effect on the patient, not just the physical and the biological impact. I feel very comfortable because she has a very good listening ear, and she tries to pick up on a lot of these symptoms to offer solutions to the patient. Well, I did not use the services offered by OncoLife other than just the medical treatment. Perhaps because I had already my own system going, but I think the more I work with Dr. Christina, I realized that her services actually benefit a wider range of patients. So I think my role in the OncoLife services is more to actually help her build the services and propagate the services rather than be a user of those services. Initially, when Dr. Christina recommended that I come to OncoLife for treatment, I was a little bit hesitant because it's not a hospital. But I trust her judgment because there are other benefits that she highlighted about seeking treatment here. One is largely the cost factor, which a lot of cancer treatment has to address. Financial part of the treatment is a very big part that cancer patients face, and it's a very big part of our stress as well. So when I started coming here, I realized that it was very convenient because it was very close to where I live. And I was also very impressed by the excellent nursing staff, the oncologist staff that they have in OncoLife. They're very personable, very caring, and very meticulous in their services compared to a hospital, which is a lot more like a cadet class approach, because they're trying to turn a lot of patients. Whereas here, I think people are a lot more caring and take time to talk to you. So I have no regrets about coming here to OncoLife for cancer treatment, and I will continue to recommend other cancer patients to come here as well. Yeah, the differences are not much in terms of the physical setup, because some of the hospitals' oncology wards, they are upgrading to also becoming more homely and personable. But what I like about the OncoLife is obviously this lab has a great window, great view, a lot of sunlight, and that plays a big part to keep your spirits up when you're sitting here for 4 to 6 hours for your infusion. So yeah, that will be one of the big difference. I'm not able to go back to my previous life, which is working 12 to 14 hours on the corporate life and business. So I actually had to re-engineer my life now to be more focused on hobbies rather than on work. So I've taken up a number of hobbies, three main hobbies. One is cooking, which I've never known how to cook for 30 years of my life. And I've also taken up ikebana, flower arrangement, which helps me calm my mind, and obviously a lot more engagement in terms of going to temples and praying. And finally, the last hobby that I took up was photography, digital photography, and that all happened in the last 6 to 7 years after I was diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. One thing about going through cancer is that when you realize that your life is short, you really think twice or three times about how you want to spend every day, every week, and every month of your life. And that's something that it wasn't something that I was comfortable doing, because you're just busy working and delivering and meeting deadlines. So my priorities now, and also in the past 5 to 6 years, has now been family is number one. Just catching up with them, what happened to them, getting engaged with their day-to-day lives, their milestones. I think one of the big life changer for me was finally strengthening my family bonds, as well as my husband's family bonds, because we all came together to help to support me. So I do spend some time now, when I travel, it was actually to family homes in other parts of the country, other parts of the world other than Malaysia, to just spend time with them and watch the kids grow and watch the grass grow. There are a couple of few factors that keeps me going. One obviously is that you really need to strengthen your faith in God. And I think with a strong faith in God, it keeps you focused on the fact that there's a lot of things that you cannot control. The only thing you can do is to live every day to the best of your ability and leave the outcome to Him. The second factor that keeps me going really is all the small things that happen amongst the family. Like watching your niece graduate from high school, watching her celebrating birthdays together, watching my son become a lawyer, and looking forward to his next milestone in life, which is to get married. So it's all these milestones that keep you going and motivated, and I think most importantly, your family members play a big part to help you understand why you need to stay alive. And the real reason is they just want you around. And to a lot of us, that's not enough. But when you're trying to find the meaning of life, right? That is as simplest and as it gets. It's really people wanting you around. And that is enough motivation with your faith in God for you to keep living for the next day. I think there's not one thing, but 2 to 3 things. And the most important thing is that your life, you have to take your life in your own hands. Even though you may consult a doctor, your friends may give you a lot of suggestions of miracle cure, at the end of the day, it's your life. And you have to do due diligence, just like you do due diligence to buy a new car, to buy a new house, to start a family. I do feel that a lot of people, especially Malaysians, do not do that level of due diligence with their own health. They basically rely on the doctors to tell them what is the right thing to do. And that's not enough. You really need to do your own research. You need to talk to the recognized and reputable sources, not miracle cures. There's no miracle cure in cancer. You need to fully understand what really is cancer. Cancer is not a fault of yours. It's something random. It's the body's immune system breaking down. So that's the first thing. You need to take charge of your health. The second thing that I like to share with the other patients is only God knows when you're going to live or die. So have faith in Him. Don't give up hope, even though the prognosis is very, very bleak. A lot of people have beaten cancer. There's a lot of statistics out there from reputable sources, and it's up to you to be the exception to the statistics. Even if your survival rate was less than 5%, be that 5% and leave the rest to God.